official capital. This is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight, President Jonathan tackles country's discrimination against Nigerians over Ebola. European Union asks INEC leadership to conduct a free and fair election in 2015, warning that Nigeria's image is at stake. Human Rights Watch laments what it calls conscription of women and girls as terrorist fighters by Boko Haram. And Brazil elects Dilma Rousseff as president for a second term. She promises a more united country.
On business news tonight, the Naira weakens against the dollar on the interbank market on a renewed surge in dollar demand.
While on sports news, the footballing world pays tribute to late South Africa captain Senzo Meyiwa, just as South African authorities intensify search for perpetrators.
The president has expressed displeasure over the discriminatory checks and stigmatization of Nigerians abroad over the Ebola virus disease. President Goodluck Jonathan said this when foreign ministers of Germany and France visited him at the presidential villa. He explained that he expects the situation to change now that the World Health Organization has certified that the country is Ebola-free. The president said there was never any justifiable basis for the stigmatization of Nigerians since Ebola was rapidly contained in the country and never attained epidemic levels. Giving the assurance that Nigeria will remain fully vigilant to prevent a re-entry of the virus, President Jonathan promised the visiting ministers that the country will cooperate fully with other concerned nations to stop the spread of Ebola in West Africa. The ministers praised Nigeria's successful containment of the virus and expressed the desire of France and Germany and the European Union to collaborate more with Nigeria in helping other West African countries where the virus still remains active. In the meantime, France and Germany have announced a proposal for humanitarian intervention force to be known as the White Helmets in assisting victims of natural disaster. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius said if approved by the European Union, the White Helmets will offer efficient humanitarian intervention for disasters in and outside of Europe. Other issues discussed at a trilateral meeting of Nigeria, France and German foreign ministers were the upcoming general elections in Nigeria. Our correspondent, Omelogo Nadi, has more.
The trilateral meeting between the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Aminu Wali, and his French and German counterparts was centered around several issues bordering on elections, security, development and health. Key among the discussions was the Boko Haram insurgency, to which the Franco-German team pledged renewed support to ensure it is contained so it does not spread to other unaffected countries.
Now the whole world shares the destiny and the situation of the more than 200 girls who were abducted more than 6 months ago and have since been held by Boko Haram. And we hope together with you that soon conditions can be created so that these girls can again be free and return home. We are supporting you in your fight against Boko Haram.
Nigeria's success story in the fight against Ebola was also brought up at the meeting. And for an efficient fight against such disasters, the French minister announced plans for a humanitarian intervention force to be set up by the European Union.
The proposal that we shall make to all our European colleagues to create at a European level white helmets who will dedicate themselves when there are catastrophes in the field of humanitarian domain or a natural catastrophe stemming from a prepared organization, we intend to mobilize all the forces of Europe in order to help, whether this happens in Europe or abroad.
We may be geographically free as a country, but we are not free of Ebola until there's no more in our sub-region and in Africa and globally. With the support that we are getting from from Germany and from France to face this fight, and I think the fight will be a lot easier for us all.
The minister said 1,000 Nigerian volunteer health professionals are trained and ready for deployment to countries who need help to fight the Ebola virus. This goes alongside training for 200 Nigerian health workers by the German government to help in the affected regions to contain the disease. Omelogo, Nadi Channels Television News.
And as Nigerians look forward to a realistic ceasefire in place, victims of the Boko Haram abductions have continued to recount their ordeals while in captivity. According to the Nigeria researcher for Human Rights Watch, Mausi Shegun, women and girls kidnapped by the Islamist group have been forced to renounce their faith, marry against their will, and some forced to go to the front line to help fight the enemy.
In April this year, 270 girls and women aged 13 to over 20 years were abducted from a school in Chibok, northeast Nigeria. As the months went by, more girls were kidnapped. One of the lucky women who managed to escape describes her experience.
I was at home packing food when we had gunshots. We ran into members of Boko Haram. They said to us, "Since we've been caught, you're going to convert to Islam."
Another victim recounts how they were treated differently, despite pleas.
They
told the Muslims to stand to one side, and the four of us Christians to the other. They released the Muslims, but they kept us. One of them even raped me.
This unidentified woman, kidnapped in September, says she was forced to accompany the militants on operations, assisting them to carry bullets.
When they wanted to kill the first man, my body was shaking, and I fell down on the ground. They forced me to get up and watch as they killed the second person. At a point, I was thinking I should grab a gun from the insurgents and kill myself.
Some were forced to change their faith, convert to Islam, and stop attending school.
There was a culture of silence and a certain taboo that had been around the issue, with especially evidenced by the reluctance of people to admit that it was happening, the denial by state authorities that these kidnappings were taking place. And we decided that it was important to document the impact of the insurgency, of the entire conflict and violence on women and girls in northeast Nigeria.
The Nigerian government says it had reached a ceasefire deal with the Boko Haram group for the release of the Chibok girls. Nigerians are eagerly awaiting the return of not only the Chibok girls, but other women in Boko Haram captivity.
We're staying with security up north. It's almost 2 weeks now since the federal government and the Boko Haram sect agreed on a ceasefire. But from recent events, it does appear that the agreement is not being respected. For the Catholic Bishop of Maiduguri, Reverend Dr. Oliver Dueme, there are doubts about the ceasefire as Christians are still being attacked and killed by the sect. The bishop, who visited one of the internally displaced people's camps in Maiduguri, Borno State, to distribute relief materials, insists words should be matched with action as far as respecting the ceasefire agreement is concerned.
This is one of the internally displaced people's camps in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, northeast Nigeria. These people were forced to leave their various villages following attacks by the Boko Haram sect. For these ones, this is where they call home and have no option but to adapt to the condition in which they find themselves. From the look of things, it seems they are faced with several challenges. But it seems their prayers are gradually being answered. This is because some concerned Nigerians from the Catholic Diocese of Maiduguri have come to distribute relief materials to them.
We have come to demonstrate our solidarity with these, our brothers and sisters, the displaced brethren, and we've come to show them that we're together. We have come to share in their suffering, in their pains.
This is a very good humanitarian and hospitality, which the Reverend and his people just shown to us, not the quantity involved, the spirit, which clearly indicate that they are brothers keepers.
Beyond the distribution, the Catholic bishop hacks on the issue of the ceasefire between the federal government and the sect. He is not confident with the peace deal.
There are many of our areas that are occupied by the terrorists. They've not been flushed out from those areas, and yet we hear people talking about ceasefire. We really have our doubts. But if it can work, what a wonderful thing. But what we want to see is some practical things happening. Let us see the terrorists coming out to lay down their arms. Let us see them leaving these areas where where many of our people have been displaced, so that our people will go back there.
With so much doubts about the ceasefire, what Nigerians, especially the affected victims of the Northeast Zone, are asking for is that the incessant killing of innocent Nigerians be brought to an end and peace finally restored in the affected state.
Coming down south now, the Ogun State Police Command has confirmed the killing of one German and the abduction of another man who were working for the construction giant Julius Berger around Ogbere, Ijebu East local government area of the state. A state police spokesperson, Mr. Oyeyemi Abimbola, told journalists that investigations have begun to unravel the perpetrators of the crime. He added that efforts are ongoing to ensure the abducted man is released safely. Meanwhile, casual workers at the Central Hospital in Benin City, the Edo State capital, today shut down activities at the facility in protest over unpaid wages by the hospital management. Nursing mothers, sick elderly patients, as well as nurses were shut out for several hours as the workers blocked all entrances to the hospital. The workers were later persuaded to vacate the entrances following the intervention by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health and other top management staff of the hospital.
These workers seem to have run out of patience barely a week after complaining about the salaries being owed them. This time, they locked up all entrances to the Central Hospital premises. These people who have come to either seek medical care or visit sick relative can't gain access. The protesting workers are not willing to budge unless their demand for the payment of their salaries is met. The salaries range from 10,000 to 15,000 naira monthly.
We are suffering for our money. Let them pay our money. Understand? For how long? For how long are we? 7 months or 8 months. Let them pay us. Our elderly, they are tired. Enough is enough for the wives. No money to buy. Let them pay us our money.
The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Health and some labor leaders from the state prevailed on the protesters, who eventually opened the entrances. Shortly after that, the Edo State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Ayanu Wairege, arrived and went straight into a closed-door meeting with labor leaders. The Edo State NLC Vice Chairman, Mr. Sani Osanyade, addressed the angry workers after the meeting.
We governments have decided that this issue will be looked into quickly because of the uprising of these casual coming up, because it's a social embarrassment to the Edo State government. Know fully well that the comrade governor is a man of principle, a man that wants to do things rightly. And you can see there is progress in the state, and the all will not be exceptional. The comrade governor asked Labour to look into it critically for those of us that are actually working. But the only thing we need to do for us right now is that we are going to bring peace to it while you bring peace to the hospital.
Amongst the patients and relatives gathered, one of them raised his voice to complain about some of the items he's been asked to buy, but which can't be used because the theatre is not in use.
I spent $11.50. I tell him that they are not going to return this thing. People should not come out to.
Outside the meeting room, the Edo State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Ayhanu Wairege, said government is doing everything possible to address the issues raised by the workers.
All the various issues concerning the hospital, not only Central Hospital, all the hospitals in the state, are being dealt with holistically.
When asked about the theatre and the patient's complaint, this is what she said.
I have not substantiated what you are saying. Whatever information I have, what I am doing now, what the government is doing is based on the information we have. So if you say the theatre is not working until I get the information and we go into it to see what the problem is, I cannot comment on that.
As the Edo State government continue efforts to develop and transform the state economy, it is also important that issues concerning the health of the people should top its agenda. This way, it can guarantee good health and a more happy people.
In part two, after the break, 9 federal internal revenue employees arraigned in court in Abuja for allegedly defrauding job seekers. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.